Hey everybody, and welcome to this month's edition of Month in Review. So this is for September in 2021, and if you're not familiar with this series, it's a series where I recap all the games that I've played during the month that are new to me, and I rank them from my least favourite to my most favourite. Now I will say, out of all the months I've done so far, this was definitely the hardest to rank these games because, to be honest, a lot of them sat around the same level, so kind of, there really was a hair's width in between how I ranked them, so who knows, in a few days' time this list might tweak slightly in the order, but generally I'm happy with it, and this was a bumper month. I played 22 new games, so I better get started. So first off, my least favourite game of the month, but I will say none of these games I thought were bad this month. This one is the Pyramid of Penguin. I suppose this one was bottom simply because this one is tailored towards children. It's a very light game, quite a unique game actually, where one side of the table is basically trying to collect these different items by moving this magnet piece, or this magnetic piece around this vertical board, and the other side of the table is kind of the penguin trying to catch all the other little penguins by kind of snapping their magnets together and guessing where they've gone. Very simple, kind of has an old nostalgic toy factor to it, but it works well for what it is, and I think if you do have younger children, this is probably a good option. So I won't dwell on it too much. Nice game, but obviously not for me because it's a kid's game. So at number 21, I have Mr. Jack Pocket. So I almost feel bad putting this one at number 21 because these are still really good games. So this one is a really small footprint deduction game where one person, and I will say this is a two-player only game, so one person's going to be Jack the Ripper, one person is going to be Sherlock Holmes, and you are basically trying to evade Sherlock Holmes if you're Jack the Ripper, and of course trying to catch Jack the Ripper if you're Sherlock Holmes. But the way you do this is quite interesting, as you have this 3x3 grid of tiles, all with different orientations of rows and stuff, and you're trying to move these different pieces. So you've got like Watson and Holmes and their dog Toby, and you're trying to line it up so you can see all the different characters available to you and ask questions to Mr. Jack and see if you can see them at any time, and if you can kind of deduce things and such. You're selecting these actions to manipulate the board as well. I thought this one did a really good job of having quite a nice weighted and quite a little crunchy actually deduction game in such a small box and in such a small time frame as well. So nice little deduction game if you want to get a deduction fix in 20 minutes. This is a good option. So that is Mr. Jack at number 21. At number 20, I have Escape the Aliens from Outer Space. So this is a hidden movement style game, a team versus team game, as one bunch of players is the aliens and one side is the humans, I suppose. And the idea is that you're trying to reach these escape pods, but some of these escape pods are shut off, so you don't know. You're going around this kind of hex, this kind of, I suppose it's a blueprint made up of hexes of this big building, and you don't know who's the aliens, you don't know who's the humans, and if you're the aliens, you're trying to catch the humans, and of course if you're the humans, you're trying to evade capture and get on those escape pods. A pretty good hidden movement game actually, very simple and stripped back. Some good variation as well in terms of setups, because you actually have just this booklet made up of all these different maps, and you're using dry erase pens to travel and stuff. You can give real information or you can give false information at times to kind of throw your opponents off track, and it works well for what it is. Nice and fast, scales well, accommodates quite a good amount of players, and if you do want a nice deduction, a nice hidden movement game, this is also a good option, and you like your sci-fi theme game, take a look at this one because it's a nice, solid, inoffensive, pleasant game. At number 19, I have Great Plains. So this was actually a little bit of a disappointment for me, particularly because it came off the back of one of my favourite games this year, that I played this year, Mandala. So this is by the same designers. It's another two-player game from the Lookout Games series. And this one has that classic Reiner Knizia feel as you are placing pieces onto this very variable map, modular map, made up of all these different kind of terrains, and the idea is you're trying to control certain regions by having the most player pieces on them, and it's got that real stripped back mechanism where you can either spawn from one of your starting spaces or just continue from a spot where you already have a piece. So a very minimalistic game, one that works well for what it is, but I was a bit underwhelmed considering the hype of the Mandala, which I mentioned, and to be honest, I think I'd rather play those classic Knizia games, games like Babylonia, which I have on my shelf here, Blue Lagoon. I think they do what this game does a bit better, if I'm perfectly honest. So, bit of a disappointment, but still not a bad game. That is Great Plains. At number 18, I have something a bit different. This is a real throwback with Ispahan. So Ispahan is from one of the old Istari games. And this one is, I suppose, one of the original dice drafting games. So you're rolling this big bunch of dice, and then turn by turn you're drafting them either to put kind of your cubes down on these different buildings, and the rarity of those buildings can really change the amount of points that you can get by controlling them. You are collecting money to buy investments and using camels to mitigate things. To be honest, a really nice game. One that I think is... it's dated pretty well, and maybe not in terms of its visual appeal. Looks, it's like a real kind of dry, dusty Euro feel. But the actual mechanisms were fun, they were snappy. You can get this one played in under an hour. Has some pretty cool mechanisms in there, and it did hold up quite well. But ultimately, is this a game I'd go back to playing again and again? Probably not. I think this has only got a few players in it before you're ready to move on. But still, considering this was one of the first dice drafters, this one still does do dice drafting pretty well. That is Ispahan. At number 17, I have Drop It. So Drop It, I suppose, when I'm comparing the game itself with the fun you have from the game, there is a bit of... there's a bit of a stretch in between them, because the game is so simple. It's barely even a dexterity game, where you're placing these different shapes into this, again, a vertical, kind of between two sheets of perspex, basically. You're trying to drop them and not touch shape with shape or colour with colour, and you score points depending on how high up on that board it is. Very silly fun, but one that actually works surprisingly well. And since I've got this one, it's hit the table a lot, so it seems to be a hit with whoever I've played this with. And it's one of those games that I think it would be difficult not to enjoy it. A nice fun experience in 20 minutes. Has that real kind of chaotic factor as you're trying to carefully place things down, but inevitably it just knocks everything over, and whatever you plan just doesn't happen. But it still is good fun. It's nice laugh out loud moments. You can try to be a bit tactical with how you place things, and sometimes it works, often it doesn't, but still I think it's a good example of this style of game. Feels mass market, but it still caters to gamers as well. So that is Drop It. At number 16, I have a party game with trap words. So trap words is a real interesting take on these word games, and I really do like word games in general and party games in general, and this is a strong one. So this is a game where you're playing in teams, and the idea is that you're trying to communicate a word, or trying to get your teammate to say a word, and one person is giving clues to try and probe that, or to try and help their teammate lean towards that word. But the other team have selected a bunch of words that you're not allowed to say without you knowing, and then if you say one of those words, you automatically lose the round. Really fun, and these are the kind of games that you can play with pretty much anybody. They always go down well, and I play a game like this anytime. So I love these style of games, and this is a good twist on them, and still a real fun experience. At number 15, I have San Juan. So this is a card-driven version of Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico, one of my favourite Euro games ever. And this one has a lot of mechanisms that are from Puerto Rico, particularly the role selection mechanism, as you're choosing which role you want. And then you get the kind of amped up version of that action, and everybody else gets a watered down version. And this one, you're kind of using cards to pay for other cards, getting points in different ways, getting crops and selling them and stuff. Everything you'd expect from this style of game, but the fact that it's all card driven, very easy to explain, but still a big kind of wide spectrum of different strategies you can go for. I think this one works well. Very smooth and pretty fast, pretty rich experience considering what you have in front of you. And I was pleasantly surprised with San Juan. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it because I am such a fan of Puerto Rico. But I think if you wanted to get a real, a nice fast version of it down quickly and get most of the experience, then I think San Juan is a good option to go for. At number 14, I have Dark Ages, A Heritage of Charlemagne. This one was undoubtedly one of my most anticipated games of the year, so I'm a bit sad that this came so low on the rankings. It was not a bad game by any stretch, but it was nowhere near as good as I was expecting. So this is a 4X Euro style game, as you are gaining new technologies, you're building armies, you're going to attack other people, building castles, managing resources. It really is a Euro game with a dudes on a map aesthetic, I suppose. I suppose there was a few things that did turn me off about this one. First was The pacing of the game was quite slow to get going. It was a real churning game, and getting that kind of snowballing effect did take its time. It also felt like you were pulling teeth a lot of the time in terms of getting resources to actually buy upgrades and buy things. So it would have been nice to have a bit of a push to get things moving. Additionally, the dice rolling combat, in my gut I thought I wasn't going to like it, and in reality it turned out that I didn't like it as well. So I thought a lot of the time the investment you'd put into building armies just wasn't worth it when it came down to a roll of the dice. So really ambitious design. I think it nearly pulled it off, but it wasn't quite strong enough to be a keeper for me. That is Dark Ages. At number 13, I have Dragon Castle. So this was another pleasant surprise of the month for me. I know I'd heard reasonably good things about this one over the years, and you know what, this game did deliver. So this is a tile placement style game, and it almost has a Mahjong style feel to it, as you're drafting tiles from this preset kind of array of dominoes, and then you're placing them on your unique board in order to try to match up all the symbols, and then you score them by placing roofs. You've got some variability in terms of getting scoring cards and endgame objectives. This one was very elegant, gorgeously produced, in fact perfectly produced, with those kind of acrylic tiles, really understated and classy design, but still felt deluxe and rich. I think this one is going to really stand the test of time. I think the years are going to treat it well, and in 10 years time this is still going to feel like a pretty fresh design. So I'm happy with this one. I would play this one pretty much any time again. Nice fast experience, and I think this is really weighted well in terms of being able to cater to kind of more experienced gamers, but still being accessible for less experienced gamers. So that is Dragon Castle. Lovely game. At number 12, I have Allegory. So Allegory is actually a 2021 release, so brand new, hot off the presses. However, I don't hear anybody talking about this one. It doesn't have a lot of buzz, but this one is a set collection and bidding style game, as you're collecting cards of these different suits. However, you've got to be careful about what you bid on and what you collect, because it has that Knizian style scoring, where out of all your suits, only your lowest suit or your worst suit is going to be the one you score. This is a game of small gains. Getting any points out of this one is difficult, because not only are you trying to collect, your lowest set is going to score. There's additional symbols which you can try and collect to get more points. But that might still sound standard, and the unique thing about this game is the fact that when you win a bid or you win an auction to claim a card, out of the chips that you've bid with, you actually place on the remaining cards and divide them out how you see fit to kind of build the incentive to take the the more neglected cards. And that was really cool how the players could control that and try and entice people into taking the cards that you don't really want yourself. Really clever. I think there's some layers here and some depth here that isn't quite apparent at first, and I'm still enjoying what this one does, and scales very well as well. I think it's 3 to 6 players, and each of these player counts. It works well because you just add more cards to the deck. So that is Allegory. Check it out. At number 11, I have some silly fun, but still a real fun experience. This is Cartagena. So this is an older Leo Colvini design, and it's a racing game as you are taking the role of these pirates breaking out of jail, and then you're racing down this corridor and then trying to get to the escape boats. And if you get all your pirates out, then you're the winner, at least if you do it before the other players, that is. But the way this game works is so simple. You just have a hand of cards, and then you're playing these cards to match symbols which kind of pop up along the way on those tunnels, and then you move to the next available one to you. However, once someone is stood on one of those symbols, if you play another card of the same type, then you jump straight past it and onto the next one. So you can really use your pieces, other players' pieces, in order to really boost your card plays and jump really far with a single action. However, you've got to be very careful about not to leave people behind, because if you do leave them too far behind, it's very hard to catch up. And also, you've got to be careful about keeping a steady flow of cards in your hand, because sometimes if you drop back and fall to the next kind of section with other meeples on it, then you can actually draw cards to keep you moving. So really good experience. Like, you can teach this one in 30 seconds. However, there are some pretty fun moments in this one. It can be a little bit thinky. It can be, you've got to be kind of opportunistic and use the right cards at the right time to get the biggest boost. But it just works. Maybe a little bit too long, maybe 20% too long. It would have been nice to have it a little bit shorter, but still, I think this is a great game that you can play with pretty much anybody, but still has some decisions there. That is Cartagena. Let's get into the top 10 then. So at number 10, I have Aquatica. So Aquatica is a pretty unique game, I suppose. It uses some mechanisms that I haven't seen before, particularly with your unique player board. So your individual player boards, you end up collecting cards from the main board and then kind of slotting them in these different kind of slots on your player board, and they all have different notches on them which give you different bonuses. And I love the way you can kind of push them in to get those bonuses, and they can all trigger off one another. You're buying locations and new characters to use their abilities, scoring points in different ways. I thought this one flowed really well. It was nice to look at, well produced. Kind of a Gateway Plus style game. I think there's lots of scope to add new material into this one to keep it interesting, and I was just really surprised with it. And the biggest thing I took away with this one was how quick it is. This one only took about 45 minutes or so with a 4-player count, and it felt quick and snappy and engaging. You can build towards something, but not kind of go too far off the track so you don't get caught off guard by the game ending. And it was just a nice, solid, well-rounded game that I would suggest checking out if you like these like these Gateway Plus style games. This is a really strong one. At number 9, I have another party game. So this is So Clover, another 2021 release. I believe this one is from the same company who put out Just One, which of course was a blockbuster hit from a couple of years ago. And to be honest, this one has a lot of similarities and a lot of shared DNA with Just One. So it's another word association style game. However, in this one, despite being completely cooperative like Just One, it works differently, where you have your own player board, which is basically this plastic clover, and you're plugging in these 4 bits of cardboard into that clover, which will have a bunch of words on each of the sides or the edges. And then where those two cards meet up, on that side of the clover, you're going to write a clue which kind of merges those 2 words together. And then once you've done that for all the sides, you're going to mix them all together, all these cards together with a new one as well. And then kind of cooperatively, you're going to try and reconfigure how they fit in that clover. Now, my initial impression with this one was that it was going to be way too easy because you can just match things the only way they would fit. However, how wrong was I when I came to thinking like that? Because this game is actually really difficult, and because the actual words they use on those cards are a bit more complex than your standard word-based game. So I thought this one worked very well, way better than I thought it would do actually. I had high hopes, but this one actually did exceed them. Being a big hit with who I played this with, being requested to bring it again to games nights. So yeah, I'm happy with this one. Maybe it suffers a little bit because of some downtime in terms of, sometimes you really get stuck out of putting clues down because those words are so difficult, and you can really rack your brains about how you're going to reconfigure them back into those clovers. But it's one of those games where you just play for the experience and aren't too fussed about how it scores. But another solid party game, and probably a candidate for the best party game of 2021. At number 8, I have Mikarinos. So Mikarinos is another Istari game. So I'm going through my Istari games that I picked up a few months ago. This one, another beige, brown looking game. This one's about collecting artifacts from this kind of excavation. A very abstract game, an area control style game, as you have these bunch of tiles onto the board which have like pyramids as blocking spaces, and you're just placing cubes on them, either spawning somewhere or expanding where you've already got a cube a bit faster in order to try and collect those tiles. And if you have the majority of those tiles, you can either use them for claiming a spot in the museum, which will get you points based on the next tiles you collect or all the tiles you collect at the end of the game, or you can actually take them for the tiles themselves, which are going to be worth points and give you bonus powers to navigate the area control part of the game a bit more swiftly and a bit more efficiently. This one I thought was remarkably elegant, so easy to teach, but had some good back and forth player interactions. You're trying to block people from jumping in spots. The scarcity of getting those museum spots to amp up your scoring was really compelling, and I liked the way all the different player powers worked as well. Very pleasant surprise. I think this game's kind of exceeds the way it looks. I think the visuals of this game is going to put some people off. But to be honest, this game isn't widely available, so this was kind of more of a, just more content for people to enjoy and just to see what I'm playing really. But if the game does appeal to you, I know it's been kind of re-implemented by a game called Rome, R-O-A-M, if you want to check that one out, which of course is more widely available. So that is Mikarinos at number 8. At number 7, I have Garum. So Garum is by Pythagoras Games. This is another, I suppose, an area control, area majority style game, as you are placing tiles on the... This is another abstract game, by the way. You're placing tiles on this big board made up of all these different bowls. And then you're trying to line up as many symbols of your colour as you can in any row or column, and then ideally try and claim those rows or columns to score kind of set collection bonuses or these kind of multipliers, because the more symbols you get, the more points you get. And if you don't hit a certain mark, then you can actually end up losing points. So I like the way you have to pace yourself in this one. Are you going to claim this spot before another player does? Are you going to claim it too early and other people are going to kind of sabotage you by placing tiles of their colour or other people's colours to try and nullify your points? Very elegant. Another game that played in 40 minutes or so, regardless of the player count. Very simple, easy to explain, but still had some good decisions here. And a lot of these games actually this month seem to fit really well in the category of being pretty rich games, but being fast to play, get on and off the table. So Garum secured a place in my collection for now, and I'm really happy with that one. Next up, I have Juicy Fruits at number 6. So this one is the polar opposite of a game like Garum and Mikarinos. This one is bright, vibrant, colourful, welcoming. This is a contract fulfillment and resource management style game as you're collecting this bunch of fruit and cashing them in to fulfill these contracts to get victory points. You're trying to buy new tiles in order to get points as well and to increase your ability to gain resources. But I love the way you get resources in the first place in this game, as on your individual player board you are shifting these pieces around of these individual fruits, and depending on how many spots you move that piece or slide it, you're going to gain the corresponding amount of resources from the supply. And that's a really puzzly part of the game as you're moving things around, trying to make them move as fast as you can and as far as you can, and try not to block other pieces in. And as you're doing that and gaining more and more resources, you're unlocking other spaces to make your actions more flexible and give you more scope to move things around. Really fun. It's so simple, but it still did have that efficiency puzzle, and it did have enough to grip more experienced gamers as well as being so accessible for people who've not so involved in the gaming hobby to wrap their head around. So happy with this one. I think this one fits a really good niche of being a versatile game, and still got many plays in this one for me. That is Juicy Fruits at number 6. At number 5, perhaps my biggest surprise of the month, at least pleasant surprise. This one is Startups. So Startups is actually a game by Oink Games. So Oink Games, of course, known for their tiny little boxes, this size box. Normally known for their party games. They've got a lot of kind of a big scope in terms of the games they put out. But this one is actually a thinky filler game. It's a set collection style game, but one with a bit of a difference, as you want to be careful not to compete with sets that you're not going to win, because if at the end of the game you have any shares in these companies, which is the theme of the game, and an opponent has more than you're going to have to end up forking out your points and giving them victory points. So it's one of those games that I tend to really enjoy, where no matter what you do, it feels uncomfortable. It feels like no matter what you do has great weight and a great kind of repercussions for each of your actions, and you can find yourself making mistakes and investing in things you just didn't want to. Also has some great incentive building here, as if you don't take cards from the market, you have to put tokens on them, which makes it more inviting for other people to get in on the party and try to invest in these companies. This really is a game I think you have to play for yourself to see how it works. Very simple, but the scoring and the way it works just feels a little bit different and a little bit out there. Keep an eye out for my review for this one, because I think this one is really flying under the radar, and perhaps I think a lot of you guys would appreciate a design like this. So that is Startups at number 5. At number 4, and I should say my last game, Startups was the first game that got my Shield of Quality. So at number 4, I have my second game with my Shield of Quality. This is My Farm Shop. So on the shelf here, My Farm Shop, another family weight game that is still has enough going on to be enjoyed by more experienced gamers. So this actually uses the Machi Koro space-based mechanism as you're rolling dice. and basically triggering different things on your board to collect resources, depending on what you've rolled, and then cashing those resources in for points. And this one you are rolling 3 dice, and 2 of them are going to do what I just said, and the other one is going to buy a new card, which you have to replace one of your existing ones on your board. And I love the way you can really tailor your engine in this one. You can build towards certain specific strategies. This one was a drastic improvement on the space-based and Magic Horror games. Those games really did fall flat for me, but I always felt that there was something there and something that could be built upon, and I'm so glad that Rudiger Dawn was the man to discover that. I should have had faith in the Rudiger Dawn because I thought, this one is just going to be a slight tweak on those games. And in a way it is, but in a way all those tweaks made the game drastically better. This one you have so much more mitigation with what you can do. You can really build a bit of an engine on investing in certain spots. And I love the fact that when other players take their turns and they select the dice to activate their board, you get the full power of the activation on your board as well, and not just some kind of reactionary reward like getting a coin or 2. This one you get to do your full-blown action, which is so much more satisfying. Great pacing, really does ramp up as the game goes on, and I just thought this was an absolute delight and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So that is my farm shop at number 4. So let's get into the top 3. So this is the best of the best games of the month. The third being Viceroy. So if you talk about underrated gems, this one was actually one of the initial Kickstarter campaigns. This one is another bidding style game, as you're bidding these tokens, these different currencies of different colours, in order to acquire these characters. And then when you build these characters in your big pyramid of cards, you're getting rewards depending on how high up the pyramid you're getting. You're trying to match these symbols to get a free income. You've got cards, these kind of lore cards that can score you points in different ways. This one is so easy to teach again. Great decisions here, great variability as all these characters do different things. One of the best examples of a point salad style game is there are so many different ways you can gather points. You know, are you going to collect these scrolls and score these boosters to boost the value of your scrolls? Are you going to be trying to just get pure points? Are you going to be trying to get these swords and shield symbols to try and, even force other people to lose points by not being able to defend themselves? What a delight this game is. I love the simplicity of the bidding here. You can only ever bid 1 token at a time, but if you bid the same colour as somebody else to claim the same character, then they cancel each other out and you have to go again, which can potentially cost you a lot of money. Works really well, ultra smooth, ultra fun. That is Viceroy, a high recommendation from me. At number 2, I have Spirit Island. So finally managed to get Spirit Island to the table. I played this one 3 times now, so still kind of formulating my opinions on this one because it is a pretty rich, a pretty involved and heavy game, as we are taking controls of these spirits. We all have these unique powers and we're trying to work together to try and fight off these invaders and kind of coming onto our island. I love the scope and kind of variety of the characters here. All so different, all have their own strengths and weaknesses. Are you going to be really defensive and stop people from pillaging the land? Are you going to be an all-out attack kind of guy and just blast these people into oblivion? Or are you going to kind of work together and try to boost each other and fill each other's weaknesses and get a whole well-rounded package by communicating with your teammates? So much to explore here. I love the elegance of the system. It is very simple, despite being so heavy and so involved and having massively paralyzing decisions, this one, because it is not the easiest game to map out turns in your head because timing is everything in this game. But when you break it down into what you're physically doing, it is actually very digestible. But still, I have a lot of room to grow with this one. Still finding my feet, but so far, so good. I think the more I explore this one does have potential to get my elite shield. And number 1, talking of elite shields, I have Tinner's Trail. So Tinner's Trail, definitely my favourite game of the month. So this is a Martin Wallace design set in Cornwall. So this one you are trying to buy these different mines. Sometimes you know what you're buying, sometimes you don't know what you're buying because these tiles are face down. And the idea is that when you reveal these tiles after buying them, you are going to be trying to extract the minerals from them. So you've got your tin and your iron. However, you can't just go in there gung-ho and mine all this metal from that and sell it, because you've got to be careful about how much water is in those mines, because the more water, the more expensive it is to extract. So you've got to buy pumps, you've got to buy these boats, all to try and get this water out and mine it at the most efficient time, being careful that the market might not be as strong in future turns. So I love this speculation with this one. There is now the right time to sell it, because this game you're actually selling, you're selling your money and converting that purely into points. So the way that the money and the points go hand in hand in this one is great. You have a tension because you get rewarded, you get compensated more in the early round. So are you going to take a gamble and sell now and not carry too much money to the next round? Or are you going to play it a bit safer, keep hold of your money, but get diminishing returns in terms of points as the game goes on? And it does fit that nice way of being a medium weight Euro, but having more complicated decisions than you'd probably expect. Absolute hit for me, and definitely up there with Wallace's best. And I'm not massively experienced in Wallace games, but when he keeps putting out games like this, and I'm getting games like Brass and Anno 1800 and Tinner's Trail to the table, this guy is quickly becoming one of my favourite designers. So definitely a unanimous, 100% guaranteed best game of the month with Tinner's Trail. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I hope you have. I really enjoy putting this video out every month, and I look forward to kind of ranking these games. Definitely my favourite video to put out. And hopefully you've enjoyed this one too. Apologies if it's gone a bit long, and apologies the lighting and setup's a bit different, but we work with what we've got. But thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.